The 20th century produced some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in history. We split the atom, unlocked the genetic code, and built machines that could touch the stars. But beneath these triumphs, one man, Carl Gustav Jung, warned of a far darker future. Jung believed that humanity's greatest threat would not come from external enemies, nor even from nature itself, but from the hidden forces within the human psyche. If man does not learn to confront his own shadow, Jung wrote, then humanity will be overtaken by forces it does not understand. And today, as we look around at a world driven by mass media, political polarization, technological obsession, and collective illusions, his words feel eerily prophetic. This is the story of Jung's prophecy about the future of humanity. Not a prophecy written in mysticism or superstition, but one grounded in the deepest layers of the human mind, a psychological warning for the modern world. The shadow of civilization, Jung believed that every individual carries a shadow, the dark, repressed aspects of themselves they refuse to acknowledge. But this is not only true of individuals. Entire civilizations carry shadows too. When societies refuse to confront their own darkness, violence, greed, oppression, they project it outward. They create scapegoats, enemies, and ideologies that disguise the real problem. In the 20th century, Jung witnessed this firsthand. Nazi Germany projecting its shadow onto entire populations, the Soviet Union erasing individuality for collective illusion. The West, caught in its own hubris of technological domination, Jung warned that unless civilizations learn to integrate their shadows, they will be consumed by them. The atrocities of history are not accidents. They are the collective shadow unleashed. The danger, then, is not gone. It only waits for its next chance. The age of mass man and the loss of the individual for Jung, one of the greatest dangers of modernity was the rise of what he called the mass man. In a world increasingly dominated by mass movements, mass politics, and mass media, individuality becomes fragile. People surrender their inner lives for the comfort of belonging to the crowd. And when people lose themselves in the collective, something terrifying happens. They become capable of atrocities they would never commit alone. This was Jung's great warning, that the suppression of individuality creates the breeding ground for tyranny, that totalitarianism, fanaticism, and ideological possession are not anomalies. They are the natural result of unconscious masses. Even today, we see this danger in new forms. Online mobs, polarized political tribes, entire nations hypnotized by propaganda. The individual disappears, and with them, responsibility vanishes too. The rise of technology and the new god Jung lived at the dawn of the technological age. Yet, even then, he sensed its power to transform humanity, not always for the better. He warned that technology would become the new god of the modern world. People would worship progress, innovation, and convenience, while forgetting the soul. Technology, Jung feared, would not simply serve us, it would shape us. It would provide distractions so powerful that we would no longer hear the quiet voice of the psyche. And so, he asked, what happens to a civilization that loses touch with its inner life? Today, we live in the answer. Phones that never leave our hands, social media that manipulates our attention, algorithms that know us better than we know ourselves. Jung's prophecy was not that technology would destroy humanity, but that by worshipping it uncritically, we would lose ourselves, becoming hollow, anxious, and disconnected from meaning. Dreams, symbols, and the forgotten language of the psyche. Jung believed that the psyche communicates with us through dreams, myths, and symbols. These are not mere fantasies, but messages from the unconscious. For Jung, the greatest tragedy of modern civilization was that it abandoned this symbolic language. Rationalism dismissed myths as superstition, dreams as nonsense, and the inner voice as delusion. But without symbols, Jung warned, the unconscious does not disappear. It erupts. It returns in distorted forms, conspiracy theories, mass delusions, extremist ideologies. He argued that modern people are spiritually starving because they no longer understand the symbolic dimension of life. The cure, he believed, was to listen again. To read dreams, stories, and archetypes not as entertainment, but as maps of the soul. In Jung's eyes, humanity's survival depended on rediscovering this ancient language, because without it, the unconscious would speak in violence instead. Individuation. The only way forward, if humanity was to survive its own psyche, Jung believed it would not be through politics, technology, or ideology, but through individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming whole, of integrating the conscious and unconscious, the light and the shadow, the self and the archetypes. For Jung, this was not a luxury, it was humanity's only hope. Because only individuals who face their inner world can resist the seductions of mass movements. Only those who know their own shadow can resist projecting it onto others. Only those who discover meaning within can withstand the emptiness of consumerism. Individuation is, in many ways, a heroic act. It is the refusal to surrender your soul to the collective. It is the courage to live authentically, even when the world demands conformity. And for Jung, the more individuals embark on this path, the greater humanity's chance of survival. The apocalypse of the unconscious Jung often used a terrifying image to describe the stakes of humanity's future. The apocalypse of the unconscious. He warned that if we continue to repress, deny, and ignore the psyche, then the unconscious will not remain silent. It will erupt on a global scale. Wars, genocides, ideological fanaticism, collective madness. These are not merely political or economic events. They are eruptions of the unconscious, unleashed when societies refuse to face themselves. Jung believed that the next great threat to humanity would not be a natural disaster, nor even a global war, but the psychic catastrophe of mass unconsciousness. He feared that humanity was heading toward a time when collective delusions, fueled by technology and ideology, could engulf the world. And yet, he also believed that crises, however destructive, carried the possibility of renewal. For out of destruction, new meaning can be born, if we are willing to face it. Jung's final warning and lasting message. Carl Jung lived through 2 world wars. He saw entire nations collapse into madness, saw technology harnessed for destruction, and watched ideologies consume millions of lives. And yet, in his writings, he did not predict a future of inevitable doom. Instead, he offered a prophecy, one that was both terrifying and profoundly hopeful. Jung warned that if humanity continued to repress its inner life, if we ignored our shadows, worshipped only technology, and lost ourselves in collective illusions, then the future would not belong to humans at all. We would become hollow shells, guided not by our souls, but by external forces, political ideologies, consumer culture, technological systems. We would live as if we were free, while being subtly enslaved by forces we barely understood. He once wrote, "The greatest danger to humanity is the psyche of man himself." This was his final warning, that humanity's undoing would not come from the outside, not from nature, not from the gods, but from within. Because the human psyche, when left unconscious, breeds projection, paranoia, hatred, and violence. It seeks scapegoats, it follows tyrants, it hides from truth. But here lies the paradox. That same psyche also carries the seeds of renewal, creativity, wisdom, and transcendence. Jung saw the human soul as a battlefield between destruction and renewal, and he believed the outcome of history would depend on which side each individual chose to nourish. The prophecy, then, is not fixed. The future of humanity is not predetermined. We are living it now. In an age of mass media, surveillance, artificial intelligence, and global crises, Jung's words echo louder than ever. Who looks outside, dreams. who looks inside, awakens. It is an almost unbearable responsibility that the fate of civilization may rest not in governments or revolutions, but in the choices of ordinary people. But this is also where Jung's hope lives. Because individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not reserved for philosophers or mystics. It begins with small acts of courage, facing your own shadow instead of projecting it onto others, creating meaning in your life instead of waiting for society to hand it to you, resisting the urge to lose yourself in the crowd, even when the crowd feels safe. Listening to dreams, stories, symbols, and art that reveal what logic alone cannot. Every person who undertakes this work, Jung believed, becomes a light in the darkness. And though one light may seem small, enough of them together can change the horizon. Jung's prophecy about the future of humanity was not a simple prediction. It was a challenge. He was telling us that civilization itself is fragile, balanced on the edge of our own unconsciousness. That the greatest danger is not the weapons we build, nor the technologies we unleash, but the inner blindness that guides how we use them. And yet, he also gave us a vision that if individuals awaken, if we begin to live from the wholeness of our souls rather than the illusions of the crowd, then humanity may yet find a future worth living. His message is not easy. It asks for struggle, self-confrontation, honesty, and inner work. But perhaps that is why it matters. Because a prophecy that requires nothing of us is already dead. Carl Jung's prophecy lives on because it demands something of us. It asks us to awaken. So as we look at the modern world, with its chaos, its noise, its temptations, and its shadows, perhaps the most important question we can ask is the one Jung left behind. Will we remain unconscious and allow history to repeat its darkest cycles, or will we dare to face ourselves, to awaken, and to finally shape the future of humanity from within? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. End. Thanks for watching.